Hello, and welcome back to the Crime Reel. Before I begin this week's narration, I have a channel update for you all. Unfortunately, this will be my last Saturday upload for a while. I have made the incredibly difficult decision to return to uploading once a week on a Wednesday at midday UK time. I am simply unable to keep up with the workload of researching, writing, recording and editing 2 separate stories each week, alongside my normal working life, which is always very busy at this time of year. I want to send huge apologies to those who look forward to my Saturday narrations. I am hopeful that I will be able to do one-off uploads when time allows, and possibly return to 2 stories per week at some point in the future. I hope you all understand. Also, I wanted to say a massive thank you for all of your support for my channel and for all of the emails and comments that you send. I genuinely love reading through all of them and getting to know you all a bit better. One thing that has come through loud and clear in these messages is that petty crime is a bit hit or miss. It seems you either love it or hate it. With that in mind, I have decided to separate petty crime from the true crime narration video. Each Wednesday at midday, I will now upload 2 videos. The first will be the crime narration in my normal style. The second video will be made up of petty crime, along with other more light-hearted pictures and topics which you've asked me to include. Hopefully, by doing it this way, those who love petty crime will have a slightly longer experience to enjoy, and those who don't can ignore the second video. Let me know your thoughts on these changes in the comments section or send me an email. I truly love this channel and the community that we have created, and want to thank you once again for your continued support. And so, on to this week's narration. For today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the troubling case of Thomas and Sandra Bird. Thomas and Sandra were both born in 1950. They were both successful academically, with Thomas holding 2 master's degrees in theology and Sandra a master's degree in mathematics. They married in the 1970s and went on to have 3 children. In 1982, when they were both 32 years old, they moved their family to Emporia, Kansas. Life was extremely busy for the couple. They both had demanding careers and had 3 children under the age of 5. Thomas was the minister at the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, where he worked hard to make the church a central part of the community. Meanwhile, Sandra was completing a doctorate in mathematics and computer science at the Emporia State University, alongside her teaching career. With the demands of their busy life and young family, their relationship began to suffer. Sandra had confided in some of her friends that she was concerned about her marital problems, including her husband's friendship with his secretary, Lorna Anderson. Thomas had met Lorna, along with her husband Martin, at a softball game that he organised through the church. Soon after, Lorna began working for Thomas as his secretary. Lorna and Thomas became close, and she confided in him about her own marital problems. It appeared to be common knowledge at the time that she'd been involved in multiple extramarital affairs. Thomas was supportive of Lorna, and before long the pair had developed a close friendship, which some believe had become intimate by the spring of 1983. In July 1983, Sandra found out that she had been awarded a promotion. On Saturday the 16th of July, Sandra and Thomas arranged for a babysitter, 14-year-old Amy, to look after their children while they went out to dinner and a movie to celebrate. At around 9:30 p.m, they popped back to their house to pick up a bottle of wine and some whiskey before telling Amy that they would be back by around 10:30 p.m. Thomas and Sandra then went to the church office where they had a drink before Sandra left to go to her office at the university, whilst Thomas went for a short run to think over the details for the following morning's sermon. After Sandra failed to return to collect Thomas, he became concerned and called Amy to see if Sandra had returned home. When he realised that she hadn't, Thomas contacted the police. He ran back to their house, but Sandra still hadn't returned. The following morning, Sunday the 17th, some hikers came across Sandra's Peugeot station wagon at the bottom of an embankment near the Rocky Ford Bridge. Sandra's body was floating face down in the shallow water of the Cottonwood River near her car. The old wooden bridge was approached by two sharp turns on a gravel road, and it appeared that Sandra had miscalculated these bends and had lurched down the embankment, being thrown from her vehicle during the crash. The police visited Thomas to tell him the news of this tragic accident. However, almost immediately, questions were being raised as to whether or not this was actually an accident. The first police officer at the scene noted a lack of skid marks and no indication that the driver had tried to regain control of their car. There was blood present on the bridge, even though the car and Sandra's body were below the bridge, and the driver's seat was pushed right back despite Sandra being only 5 foot 1 inch tall. Despite these issues, when the autopsy was performed, it was determined that Sandra had died from injuries consistent with a car crash, and her death was determined to be an accident. 4 months later, on 4th of November 1983, Lorna Anderson and her husband Martin were travelling on a remote road with their 4 young daughters when Lorna started to feel unwell. She asked Martin to stop the car and ran into a nearby field to be sick. As she did so, she lost her keys and called Martin to help her find them. While Martin was searching, a masked man appeared and shot him 3 times in the back of the head, killing him instantly. The authorities became suspicious of why a gunman would strike in such a remote spot and just happened to be present when this family randomly decided to stop their car. When Sandra's family found out about Lorna's husband's death and her connection to Thomas, they also became even more suspicious. The investigation uncovered a prior, unsuccessful plot to take Martin's life. According to a local man, Lorna had attempted to pay him $5,000 to kill Martin. This money had allegedly come from the insurance settlement which Thomas received after Sandra's death. The details of the plan were almost identical to the method in which Sandra had died several months earlier. In early 1984, both Lorna and Thomas were charged with criminal solicitation to commit first-degree murder. Lorna pleaded guilty to these charges and was sentenced to 5 to 18 years in prison. Thomas pleaded not guilty, but in August 1984 was convicted and sentenced to 2.5 to 7 years in prison. This conviction brought increased pressure to re-examine the circumstances surrounding Sandra's death. In October 1984, Sandra's body was exhumed and a second autopsy performed. Dr. William G. Eckert, a forensic pathologist, noted additional injuries which had not been identified at the first autopsy. These included what he believed to be defensive injuries, consistent with someone trying to ward off blows in an attack, and as such he did not concur with the previous determination that Sandra had died as a result of the car accident. In February 1985, Thomas was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. The trial began in July 1985. It needed to be established whether Sandra had died as a result of a tragic accident or if she had been killed during a brutal attack on the bridge, and if so, who was responsible for that attack. The trial took place in Emporia, Kansas, a community of less than 30,000 people, so it could be argued many had already made up their minds as to what had happened before the trial even began. The prosecution attempted to prove Thomas and Lorna's affair by showing cards sent by Thomas to Lorna detailing his love for her. One card stated, "I love you and I'm confident of the future, and that makes the present okay." The defence admitted that the pair had been romantically involved, but stated that this only started after the death of both of their spouses. It was argued that these cards, which were sent when both Sandra and Martin were alive, referred to Christian rather than romantic love. The prosecution also relied on Thomas's strange reaction when notified of his wife's death, stating that, "We never go there. before he had been told exactly where his wife had been found. The defence explained that this was because he was told the general area where she had been found and then asked for confirmation of the specific location. Additionally, the prosecution stated that Thomas had notified the police about Sandra's disappearance before checking with the babysitter to see if his wife had returned home. This was denied by the defence. The babysitter also testified that Thomas had returned home in a shirt and tie despite having been running, which the defence said was a mistake on the babysitter's part, as he was actually wearing a polo shirt. The lack of skid marks at the crime scene, the blood found on the bridge, the position of the driver's seat, the arrangement of the body, and the car being inconsistent with an accident, along with the autopsy results, were all used to discredit the argument that this had been an accident. In addition, Sandra's watch was found in a gap below the bridge, in a location where it could not have been thrown from the car. The defence argued that there were no witnesses or physical evidence that put Thomas at the scene of the crime. They claimed that the babysitter had been mistaken with her timings and details of what Thomas had been wearing. Thomas did not take the stand during the trial. On the 7th of August 1985, Thomas was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. A TV movie called Murder Ordained was released in 1987. It starred Keith Carradine, Kathy Bates and JoBeth Williams and was nominated for a Primetime Emmy. The film was not without controversy, as it was released at a time when Thomas was appealing his sentence, and some believe that the way he was depicted in the film painted him as a guilty man. In August 1987, he filed a motion for a new trial on the basis of evidence uncovered that stated that Sandra was contemplating suicide and had told a fellow minister's wife that she knew exactly where she would do it. It was a place that was really deserted with a long curve by a bridge. This request for a new trial was rejected. On the 4th of August 1988, at Kansas State Penitentiary, Thomas remarried. His new wife, Terry Lynn Smith, had met Thomas at a church function shortly after Sandra's death. Terry has a master's degree in education and specialises in teaching children with learning difficulties. She attended all of Thomas's trials and fully believes in his innocence. In November 1988, Lorna made a deal with prosecutors to admit to the second-degree murder of her husband, Martin. This was reduced from a first-degree murder charge in return for her testimony against Thomas, who she claims pulled the trigger that night. Lorna was sentenced to 15 years to life for her part in the crime. Thomas was then charged with the first-degree murder of Martin Anderson. In 1990, Thomas went on trial for this murder. Lorna testified that she had planned Martin's murder with Thomas, and it was him who had shot her husband. On the 14th of March 1990, after jury deliberations of just 75 minutes, Thomas was found not guilty of Martin's murder. No one else ever been charged in connection with his death. After serving 15 years for Sandra's murder, Thomas was eligible for parole in 2001. During his time in prison, he had been nothing short of a model inmate, setting up various charities along with support groups for inmates and their spouses. Members of Sandra's family objected to his release, and this, together with his continued refusal to admit his guilt, led to the parole being denied. 3 years later, after completing a work release program, Thomas was released on parole in June 2004. He still maintains his innocence. Lorna was turned down for parole on multiple occasions before being released in 2007. It would seem people are divided as to whether or not Thomas is innocent or guilty of both the murder which he was convicted for and the one for which he was acquitted. Those who believe his innocence think that Lorna or one of her many boyfriends may have been responsible for both deaths, although there is no evidence to support this. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this case. innocent or guilty. Just like to say thanks to Schreiber Teresa 93 for suggesting this video to me. And now it's time for petty crime. Cam has kindly sent in his 2 cats, Halima and Moses. As a kitten, Moses was abandoned on the streets of Hartford, Connecticut, but thankfully rescued by Cam. Moses enjoys climbing into bushes to capture birds and likes sunbathing. His crimes are eating too much and drooling. Don't we all? Halima's crime is for bringing home turkey feathers, and if you're wondering, yes, she is named after an Indiana Jones reference. She also broke her leg 18 months ago and has only very recently had her steel rod removed. She's made a great recovery. Thanks for sending them in, Cam. Next we have Gillian from Scotland. She has sent in her cat, Yeri. That's Yeri. Yeri is only 18 months old. Anything food related left out will be eaten by Yeri. That includes bugs, but her favourite dish of choice is vegetarian jalfrezi. Her favourite places to sit in life are Gillian's laptop and the bed that's nearest to the radiator. Her party piece is to sit on top of the door to survey the land in front of her and to see if there's any food lying about. Thanks Gillian in Scotland for sending them in. And finally we have Poop Snoot, who has sent in Snurky, her oldest cat. And you've got to keep this to yourself without telling the other 2 cats that live in the house. Snurky is her favourite. He is 19 years young and is sitting on his brother's lap in this photo. His brother is called Marshall, by the way. Poop Snoot and Snurky communicate via non-spoken sounds. He sleeps under the covers when it's cold. He enjoys going for car rides and will happily jump into the Snuggie for walks. Poop Snoot believes they are bonded for life, but she actually honestly knows that Snurky would trade her in for a red laser dot to chase. Thank you Poop Snoot for sending them in. That's today's petty crime. Thanks very much for listening to the Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. Going back to the case, whilst the bridge is called the Rocky Ford Bridge, all the locals from that area call it the Bird Bridge. Goodbye.